I've been using Fujifilm cameras and lenses for about 6 years at this point, and while I've borrowed, tested and used many different lenses, I keep coming back to this, the 35mm f1.4. So this lens is probably my favorite lens on the Fujifilm system. When it comes to the 35-1.4, there's something more important than sharpness, autofocusing speed, or build quality. It's the character of the photos I take with this lens which keep me coming back. The 35-1.4 was released back in 2012 when Fujifilm was smaller players and had just released their X series range of cameras. While developing this lens, Fujifilm placed the focus on creating a lens with character, opposed to an optically perfect lens. This is pretty much unheard of these days, as camera and lens manufacturers are constantly in a race to produce the fastest and sharpest lenses. But in my opinion, while the newer lenses are cleaner and crisper, I still prefer the photos I take on this older 35-1.4. This lens has a great mix of sharpness and creamy softness in the background, which makes photos taken with it really pleasing on the eye. And this is what I think people are referring to when they talk about the character of the photos taken with the 35-1.4. On a quick side note, if you do like the look of the photos in this episode, they were all edited using my preset pack, which is currently on sale and also helps support this channel. If you're interested, I have a link down below in the description. Also, if you can hit that thumbs up button, it makes a massive difference to the channel, and if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe. So what do I mean when I talk about the 35mm 1.4's character? It's hard to kind of put my finger on exactly what it is, because these aren't really characteristics which you can test and put onto a paper and then just show to you. It's more about using this lens over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, and seeing the photos I get with it compared to the shots I'm getting with Fujifilm's other lenses. And in my experience, the images I take with this just look more pleasing on the eye, and a lot of it has to do with how the sharp areas of the image roll off into the outer focus areas of the image. Now, a good way to think about this is when you focus on something with your eye, the rest of your vision is kind of blurred out. It's not completely clear, but it's a very gradual change from the in-focus area to the outer focus area. Now, with Fujifilm's smaller primes like the f2s, while they are good lenses, the way the sharp area rolls off into the outer focus area is a bit harsher. Whereas the shots taken on this 35-1.4 is a lot more of a gradual, soft transition from the sharp area into the outer focusing area. Another thing I really like about this is the highlights, how this renders highlights, how it captures highlights. They just appear a bit softer, and again, the way they transition into the shadows or into the other areas of the photos where the highlights aren't as strong, again, is very soft and it's very gradual. Now, a lot of this comes down to how this 35-1.4 was designed. Now, with most modern lenses, the focusing is done internally within the lens's own body, and this helps keep the lenses more compact and also makes them more robust, less prone to water or dust damage. Now, without getting too technical, for those lenses to be more robust and more compact and have all the focusing done internally, the glass inside doesn't actually move that far back and forth in order to focus. And one of the trade-offs is having harsher outer focusing areas. Whereas with older lenses like the 35-1.4, the entire lens system moves the focus, which results in outer focus areas which are softer and more pleasing on the eye. Now, there are some disadvantages to the 35-1.4's focusing system. It is both slower and less accurate than Fujifilm's newer lenses. Furthermore, it's not weather sealed. The front element pops in and out, making it quite easy for dust and dirt to get inside. So you do have to be careful when you're using this 35-1.4. I'd refrain from using it if there's heavy rain, if I'm going to the beach, or if I'm going to a location like a desert where dust, water, or debris can get into the lens while it's focusing. But from how this lens renders backgrounds, the way the sharper areas of the image transition into the outer focus areas, how it captures highlights and its colors, there really is something special about the photos taken on the 35-1.4. This brings me on to how enjoyable the 35 1.4 is to use. Now in my opinion, this is Fujifilm's best looking lens, especially when you pair it with Fujifilm's rangefinder bodies like the X Pro 2 or the X Pro 3. The body of the 35 1.4 is all metal. That includes the unique looking lens hood. The lens has a metallic retro feel to it, which actually looks better after years of use. For me, the size and weight of this lens perfectly complements Fujifilm's smaller camera bodies too, which I prefer over Fujifilm's newer, larger prime lenses. Now while I and many other Fujifilm users love this lens, we probably won't be getting too many lenses like the 35 1.4 going forward. Fujifilm has more of a focus on making lenses which are optically perfect, and this makes sense when you consider the competition and also seeing that Fujifilm are now focusing on video as well. This has resulted in the latest set of primes and Mark II versions of older lenses from Fujifilm being larger, heavier, and on paper optically superior to the older lenses like the 35 1.4. So despite its shortcomings and newer versions of this lens coming out, this 35 1.4 is still my favorite Fujifilm lens.